So this will be part 6 of how to save a lot of money off your helicopter ratings. And what I'd like to talk about initially is I'd like to talk a little bit about the aircraft, which helicopters that you actually fly during your training. And most people, when they get their helicopter rating and they've finally accrued enough hours they can work as a CFI, about 75% of the time your quote-unquote first job in a helicopter is usually going to be as a CFI. About a fourth of the time it'll be flying tours, or maybe even less than that, maybe a fifth of the time or so it might be flying tours. So CFI jobs are a lot more plentiful than tour jobs. But a lot of people don't ever want to be a CFI. They have no intentions of functioning as a flight instructor, and they basically just hold out until a tour job becomes available. But for the most part, about 3/4 of your first jobs that are out there available for you as a helicopter pilot is as a flight instructor. And the while you're doing your training, if you look, about 85 to 90% of the flight schools in the United States and probably worldwide fly Robinson helicopters. All right. So if during your training you don't accrue enough hours in Robinson helicopters to meet the requirements allowing you to fly as a CFI in a Robinson helicopter, then you've just eliminated about 85 to 90% of the chances of you getting a job as a CFI, because most of the flight schools are going to fly Robbies, and you need to have accrued enough hours in them to be qualified to flight instruct in a Robinson. I think it's absolutely a travesty. Some of the schools that are actually taking post 9/11 GI Bill money from service members, and they're not doing, in some cases, no training in Robinsons, which is really a travesty, because now you just took all of the flight training money that the guy or gal had, took them all the way through to their ratings. You got all of that, when they get out and they still can't get a job now, except for at the flight school that they just learned at. They'd be limited to that school or very few schools. So if you do your flight training, you got to do a significant portion of it in a Robbie, or you're really selling yourself short. All right? If you're going to flight instruct in a R-22, you got to have 50 hours in an R-22. And if you're going to flight instruct in an R-44, you have to have 50 hours in an R-44, although again you can credit 25 of your R-22 hours towards that 50 requirement, and to meet the requirements for the R-44. But you really need to train at a school that uses Robinson helicopters, or you're going to end up completing all of your training and with very likely still be very difficult to get a job at that point. And you can become quite a proficient helicopter pilot. I don't really think it matters that much which helicopter that you're actually training in. I mean, you can get very high quality training in an Instrum and a Schweitzer, Hughes, the Robbies, gimbal. I don't think the helicopter that you learn to fly in is sort of a predictor of how well you're going to do, as much as the quality of the flight instruction and the quality of the flight instructor that you have. So you can become an adequate helicopter pilot or proficient helicopter pilot in just about any of the helicopters. In fact, when I did my training, I did most of my training initially in a Schweitzer. Actually, I did all my check rides in Schweitzers and started flying Robbies. I ended up buying a Brantley and flew that thing for quite a while. So I don't really think it has to do so much with the helicopters as it does the quality of the instruction that you receive. The reason that Robinsons are so popular, and the reason that they're used in most flight schools, again worldwide, has to do with economics. They're the most affordable helicopter. And if you compare a 2-seat R-22, most of the time you're going to be able to rent an R-22 or to flight train in an R-22 somewhere in the neighborhood of between $250 and $325, per hour for your training, which is actually quite affordable. You compare that to a 2-seat gimbal, and I actually looked around on some of the prices that they're getting for training in the gimbals, and they're consistently $450 to $550. I mean, they're quite high. So it just has to do with economics. The Robinson, you can at that rate, you can fly almost twice as many hours in an R-22 as you could a gimbal, just based on the cost per hour. So Again, the reason I'm recommending that you fly in a Robinson has to do with your ability to get a job once you get your training completed. You have to be able to meet the training requirements for being a flight instructor in a Robbie. And if you don't, you can't do that. And most of the flight schools use a Robbies, and so you're really, like I say, you're selling yourself short, and you're really cutting yourself out of most of the CFI jobs that are available out there if you don't have the time in the Robinson helicopter to be able to flight instruct in one. So let's look at that, 1/4 or 1/5 of you guys that decide you're never going to be a flight instructor, but you want to do tours. You want to do excursion tours. And so, what helicopter do you think most people are going to use to do tours with? What's the most popular helicopter for doing tours with? And Robinson R44. All right. The R44, your profit margin is way higher. You're not going to see anybody, well, you might. Doubtful that you're going to see anybody using a gimbal to do tours in with 2 seats. You can get 1 passenger at a time. Or a Schweitzer with 2 seats in it, or use 300, or, it's just the economics aren't there. If you use an R44, potentially you got 3 seats there, not just 1. And so most of the tour operators that do excursion tours use an R44. It's the most popular one because you can make the most money with it. And so there again, if you decide, well, I don't want to be a flight instructor, I just want to do tours, you really need to have some R44 time under your belt. In fact, most of the places, you got to have a certain amount of R44 time or they're not going to be able to insure you. So again, when you're doing your training, the Robinson holds huge advantages over the other competing helicopters, in that it's much more easy to get a job either as a CFI or flying tours in a Robinson once you've completed your training. So got a lot of good reasons to use a Robbie, and not very many good reasons not to. So I hope this 6-part series has helped you guys figure out how to get into the helicopter industry at quite a discount. And for some people, this could be the difference between being able to get into the helicopter industry and not. So, and hopefully we help you achieve your dreams. And again, don't let anybody talk you out of it. All right. I'm going to post my the web address up, or actually my email address rather. And if you're a flight instructor at the school you're going to now has any questions about this process, or if you have any questions about this process, then feel free to send me an email, and I'll be happy to get back with you. Sometimes I don't check my email for a few days, so maybe a day or two before you get a response back from me, but I'll be happy to contact you by email or call you on the phone and answer any of the questions that you have. So if there's any confusion about this, feel free to go back and watch all 6 parts. Again, this can be a little bit confusing, so if you go through and watch each of the films in the series, it'll make a lot more sense to you. But feel free to send me an email. Be happy to contact you and answer any questions that you have. And if your flight instructors have at the school that you're going to have any specific questions, they can feel free to email me as well, and see if we can get all of your questions and all of their questions answered. So good luck out there, and I hope to see you guys soon in the industry. So.